Yeah, let me talk a little bit about the differences. So again, fentanyl molecule, synthetic molecule, invented about 40 years ago. Tremendous advances in medicine when it's used legally. Tremendous. And off of that molecule, several other molecules, legal molecules, remifentanil, sufentanil, HALT Fentanyl, they've all been licensed and legal. But that just means that that molecule, again, small changes in the original fentanyl molecule makes it just as deadly in terms of you stopping breathing, which is how you die from fentanyl overdose. What this legislation does, again, is to say that any derivative of fentanyl is treated as a Schedule I drug, which means it's illegal and the penalties are enhanced. That's what we need. We need the enhanced penalties.
Regarding sanctions, we put together a select committee on China that's looking into a lot of threats that China poses, specifically the CCP. And Chairman Gallagher, if you look at the hearings that they've had a number of hearings, very bipartisan. Both Republicans and Democrats on that committee have been very serious about looking at not just the military threats, but the threats that are here domestically that are posing serious problems to our country, fentanyl being one of those. Tomorrow, they're going to come out with their first report. It's a list of recommendations that standing committees will look into in terms of looking at legislation. They're not an authorizing committee, so the select committee will make recommendations. This is just the first round of recommendations they're going to be making tomorrow. I'm not sure if anything specifically on fentanyl will be part of that, but clearly the threat that fentanyl poses as it comes into our country through Mexico, but from China, will be one of the things that they're looking into.
So I know you're saying that the bill is likely to get bipartisan support. A handful of Democrat Republicans have said they're interested in supporting it. Can you speak to us to why there's no Democratic co-sponsors, and what was your outreach like getting them there?
So the bill came through the Energy and Commerce Committee. I can't tell you why no Democrat was a co-sponsor. I will tell you from, in the Rules Committee last night, the Statement of Administration Policy was brought to the Rules Committee. You've got to figure, well, that's going to be a veto threat from the president. It wasn't. He basically talked about some things about how bad the problem was, but he did not issue a veto threat. Because of the absence of a veto threat and some of the language I heard on the floor during the rules debate, I would expect there will be a pretty significant bipartisan vote on this bill when it comes to the floor on Thursday. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see, but I'd be optimistic that whatever objections people think they may have had will begin to melt away when faced with the very harsh reality of what this problem represents.
Because Brent, you talked about other bills as well.
Well, I mean, I did talk about the Stop Our Scourge Act, declaring fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction, and I think you're asking more about what do we do for those that are addicted, and we are always and have been for several years, going back to when we had the opioid crisis with OxyContin, is how we get people through rehab. Look, I've always addressed the issue that we faced. Besides the prescriptions that were not necessarily appropriate in hindsight and what had happened with prescribing, we always had the problem with drugs coming across our border. And I've always contended that this is a problem that we have from border to work. And so we have to stop things coming across the border. That's number one. And then number two, we have to prevent people from ever starting as best we possibly can and handle those that are actually distributing these drugs into our country and make sure that they get jail time and that they're not back out there just doing this again and again and again. And then, when we get people into rehab, they have to have somewhere to go afterwards. And so we have to make sure that people that come out of rehab have an opportunity to regain society. Otherwise, very often they end up just back where they were. Right now, there's a lot of jobs out there. Let's cure people, let's get people into work so they have a sense of purpose besides just getting up and taking drugs every day.
And I'd just add that all of the parameters of the Support Act that was signed in October of 2018, those all still exist. So none of those have gone away. Now, quite likely the committee will work on reauthorization of the next phase of the Support Act later on in the year. But this is not the end of the story, but this is a necessary step for us to take right now to begin to get on top of this problem.
Okay, Victoria and I would ask you, I'm curious, when civil rights groups today kind of put out a statement saying they didn't agree with this bill just because they're worried it will result in more incarceration of people, maybe for analogs of fentanyl that aren't as strong as fentanyl. Do you have any kind of response to that? And I'm wondering if that maybe is why some Democrats don't want to sign on.
That is the reason that they will give. But there is nothing in the legislation upon which we will be voting on Thursday that deals that increases or even talks about mandatory minimums. This is a fantasy that has been created by the other side, and quite honestly, the problem is so severe, I frankly don't understand why they've created this diversion.
Thank you all.
All right.